play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to their How to Play Warhammer 40k 8th Edition tutorial. Of course, if you have any friends who want to learn how to play Warhammer 40k, tell them to go to MiniWarGaming.com/howtoplay40k. Today, we are going to talk about command points and stratagems, the bread and butter of any matched play scenario, or really anything that uses a battle-forged army. So what I want to do here is talk about briefly how command points work, your limitations in their use, and then talk about the various stratagems that you can come across. Now, all of this assumes just the stratagems that have come out in the main rule book. I wouldn't be surprised, although I do not know, if future books introduce new stratagems. I also know that some scenarios specifically have their own stratagems, and so if more scenarios are introduced, then I'm assuming they will have stratagems as well. So do not assume that what is in this video is all of the stratagems that are available to you, but we will talk about the three main ones in the rule book, a few others in some scenarios, and talk about the restrictions in match play. Let's take a look at the rules. Most of the rules for the command points and stratagems can be found under Battle-Forged Armies. This is page 240. Now this doesn't actually have the rules here, it'll be on the next page over, where we talk about command benefits, command points, and stratagems. First off, how do you get command points? Well, you can only get them if you build a Battle-Forged Army. There are certain units, like I'm thinking of the Astra Militarum Creed, who actually just says if he's your warlord, you get bonus command points. And so you have to look at your individual data slates to see if there's any way for you to get bonus command points from things. But we're going to assume that you don't have any of those. So just by building a Battle-Forged Army, which we already talked about in the previous video about list building and allies, then you automatically get 3 command points. That's written right here. All Battle-Forged Armies start with 3 command points. Now, detachments can allow you to bring more command points. For example, a battalion detachment gives you +3 command points. These are cumulative, so if you bring a battalion detachment as well as, let's say, a spearhead detachment, then you will have a total of 7 command points. You'll have the 3 base ones, the 1 here from the spearhead detachment, and a 3 from the battalion detachment for a total of 7. These command points are really, really useful in the game. So if you bring a Battle-Forged list and your opponent does not, you're going to have a very decisive advantage over them in the sense of how you can use them. So command points are used to purchase stratagems, and the stratagem itself will tell you how it's used and normally when it can be used. If it does not specify when it can be used, then it'll be pretty self-evident what the stratagem does as to when it can actually be used. But it just says, basically, if a player has a Battle-Forged Army, they can spend command points to use the following stratagems in any mission they play. So these 3 right here are common to every type of mission. And then there are additional stratagems in some other special missions. Now I should specify one more weird thing, and maybe there will be an FAQ that clarifies it, so you might want to check this. It says you can spend command points to use a stratagem before or during a battle. Now, there's one of the stratagems, which is the first one right here, which is called a command reroll. You can reroll any single dice. It's 1 command point and allows you to reroll a single dice. So even if it's like a leadership check, or sorry, not a leadership check, a psychic test where you're rolling 2 dice, or a charged range test where you're rolling 2 dice, if you use 1 command point, you can only reroll 1 of those dice. So it's a single die. Now, you have to be the one rolling the die. So it says that you can use command points before or during a battle. So some of the rolls that you do before a battle include seizing the initiative. Now I really hope that you're going to find an FAQ that says, no, you cannot use command points for a command reroll to seize the initiative, because I really don't like that, because seize the initiative is already something I'm not a big fan of, so the fact that you could reroll it goes from a 1 in 6 chance of it happening to an almost 1 in 3 chance. But as of right now, rules is written, unless there's an FAQ, you can reroll things like seize initiative. If you're the one determining the deployment map, then you're the one rolling the die. Anywhere it specifies which player is rolling the die, you can use the command reroll stratagem, but it has to be you rolling the die. If there is a die to be rolled and it does not specify that one of the players is rolling the die, then nobody can use this command reroll. Where you're going to find it more often being used is to help you reroll hits, or reroll wounds, or reroll saves, or reroll charge distances, or reroll advanced distances, things that are really pivotal. And that's where the command reroll comes in. The second one is a counter-offensive. I talked about this one in the advanced close combat. So this stratagem is used right after an enemy unit that charged has fought. Select one of your own eligible units and fight with it next. So this essentially allows you to interrupt the order of operations if your opponent has charged. If he does not have anybody who charged, then you're not going to be able to use this stratagem. So let's say your opponent has 4 units that charge. Typically, all 4 of those units get to do their attacks in the fight phase before you even get to do anything. Well, with this stratagem, for 2 command points, after his first one has completed his attacks, you could choose to then spend 2 command points and have one of your units go instead. And the last one is Insane Bravery. You can automatically pass a single morale test. This stratagem must be used before taking the test. So you can't roll the test, fail it, and be like, you know what, I'm going to use 2 command points to re-roll, or to just automatically pass that. You could use 1 command point to re-roll it, but you could not then do Insane Bravery after you've actually already rolled it. So if you're really wanting a unit to stay put, and they've taken a lot of casualties, and you're pretty sure you're going to lose more guys, you can spend 2 command points and just automatically pass that morale test. That one is actually really important as well. Now, there's something I want to talk about here. Match play specifically has a rule stating that you can never use the same stratagem more than once in a single phase. Phase is a keyword, and stratagem is a keyword there. You can use multiple stratagems in the same phase. For example, if we are in the fight phase and my opponent has charged me and he attacks as one of his chargers, I could spend 2 command points and do a counteroffensive and then use one of my units and attack back. In that same phase, I could also do a reroll in order to reroll a hit or a wound. Obviously, Insane Bravery is only used in the morale phase, so we'll never use that there. But as soon as I do a reroll in that phase, I cannot use this again in that phase. But I could use a reroll in the movement phase, say to reroll an advance roll. And then in the psychic phase, I could use another command point to reroll a psychic test. And in the shooting phase, I could use a command point to reroll a single die when I'm hitting or wounding or anything I need to do right there, rolling damage. And then in the charge phase, I could use a command point to do a reroll to reroll a charge. And then in the fight phase, I could do a reroll to reroll any of the hits or one of my own armor saves. And in the morale phase, I could use another command point to reroll one of my morale tests, all using the same stratagem each time. I just burned through 6 command points doing that, but if I had it, that would be totally legitimate in a match play game because I did not use the same stratagem more than once in the same phase. So phase is the keyword there. It's not turn, it's phase. So remember, movement phase, psychic phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase, and morale phase. Now, if you're using them outside of a phase, for example, before the game starts, there's no limit to how many of the same stratagem you can use. But remember, you cannot re-roll a reroll. That is a rule earlier in the game that we talked about in the core rules. You can never re-roll a die that has already been re-rolled. So that kind of stops you from using the command reroll more than once in the same thing. So I couldn't just keep spending command points when I'm seizing the initiative to keep re-rolling that die until I roll that 6. You can only ever re-roll a single dice once. No exceptions to that, unless there's a very specific rule in your data slate that says otherwise, which I have yet to see anywhere. Just to give you a couple examples of stratagems that are specific to a mission, we have the Maelstrom of War Cloak and Shadows mission, and we're going to be talking about missions later on, but in this mission there is a special rule called the Cover of Darkness. When rolling to hit in the shooting phase, subtract 1 from the roll if the target is more than 18 inches away, so it's assuming that it's dark out. But if you have a new stratagem, in this mission, players can use command points to use the following additional stratagems. And now remember, this does not say they have to have a battle-forged army. Now, in this case, the army says that each player selects a battle-forged army to agree to points limit. But if you did have a scenario that didn't say that in the armies, then you could use this even if you didn't have battle-forged, although I guess you wouldn't have any command points, but unless you had some bonus ones from somewhere else. So flares is 1 command point. Select an enemy unit. For the duration of your turn, your units can shoot at the unit without penalty from Cover of Darkness. So you wouldn't get the -1 to hit if it's more than 18 inches away against that same enemy. Now in match play, which is most likely what you're doing if you're playing this scenario, you can only use that once in your shooting phase because you cannot use the same stratagem more than once in the same phase. Another one is in the Contact Lost Maelstrom of War mission. We have a stratagem here for 3 command points. Temporary comms uplink. Provided you have fewer than 6 active tactical objectives, you can use the stratagem to immediately generate 1 extra tactical objective. Now, if you have no idea what that means, that's fine. I'm just showing you that these stratagems appear in the different missions. This one just basically means if you're using tactical objectives like Maelstrom of War, ones like Contact Lost, in this mission, you could generate an additional one, and it helps you get more points. We'll be talking about tactical objectives and scenarios in a future tutorial. So remember the key things for using command points. First off, you have to have a battle-forged army to even get command points. You need to build your armies into enough detachments to build those up. Our game in the MiniWarGaming Vault for this one actually is going to show you a player who's built up an army that has tons of command points. And so you're going to be able to see a lot of those in use, lots of stratagems being used, lots of rerolls, mostly for rerolls, but there's lots of those being used. And that's all in the MiniWarGaming Vault below. And also remember that in match play, you cannot use the same stratagem more than once in the same phase. You are welcome to use more than one stratagem in the same phase, just not the same one more than once. And don't forget that some missions specifically have their own. And I wouldn't be surprised, once again, if future codexes come out for the armies and they have stratagems unique to that army. So go ahead, watch the battle report below, and make sure you send your friends to miniwargaming.com/howtoplay40k if they need to learn how to play 40k 8th edition. And I will see you in the next tutorial.